The blade had been in his hand for 3 seconds when the first attacker lunged. Carter grabbed the weapon from the wall display without thinking. The alien princess was behind him, her silver skin gleaming under emergency lights, and 6 armed figures were flooding through the shattered doorway. No time for questions. No time for fear, he swung. The sword moved like water, like lightning, like nothing he'd ever held before. The lead attacker's weapon clattered to the floor in 2 pieces. Then the alien stumbled back, clutching a sparking wound across his chest plate. Impossible, the princess whispered behind him. Carter didn't answer. The second attacker was already moving, firing some kind of energy weapon. He twisted, and the blade intercepted the bolt midair, absorbing it into the metal with a hungry pulse. The sword grew warmer in his grip, heavier, more alive. "What is this thing?" he shouted. "The Dawnbreaker," she said. "No one has wielded it in 4,000 years. The third and fourth attackers came together. Carter had been a construction worker 6 hours ago, before the transport malfunction, before he'd stumbled into the royal chamber during an assassination attempt. He had no training for this, but the sword did. It pulled his arms through forms he'd never learned. His feet found positions he'd never practiced. He became something between puppet and partner, and the 2 attackers went down hard. "It rejects everyone," the princess said, wonder in her voice. "It killed the last 7 who tried to touch it." The 5th attacker was smarter. He threw a device that exploded into sticky webbing, meant to trap them both. Carter's sword hand moved on pure instinct, cutting a doorway through the expanding net and pulling the princess through before it could seal. They ran. The corridor beyond was crystalline, walls pulsing with bioluminescent veins. Alarms shrieked in frequencies that made Carter's teeth ache. The 6th attacker appeared ahead, blocking their escape, holding something that looked like a miniature sun between his clawed hands. "Fusion charge," the princess gasped. "He'll destroy this entire wing." Carter threw the sword. He didn't know he could do that. Didn't know the blade would spin through the air like a guided missile. Didn't know it would slice through the fusion charge's containment field and return to his hand before the attacker even hit the ground. The charge collapsed harmlessly into sparks. "You're human?" the princess said, staring at him. "Your species shouldn't even be able to perceive the blade's edge. The neural patterns are all wrong." More footsteps echoed from multiple directions. They weren't done yet. Carter looked at the sword in his hand. Ancient script glowed along its surface now, reacting to his touch, changing to symbols he somehow understood. "Chosen bearer," the words read. "Awakened at species threshold. Humanity ascends." "I don't know what's happening," Carter admitted. The princess grabbed his free hand. Her touch was cool and electric. "Then we learn together," she said, "because you just became the most important human alive." The footsteps grew closer. Carter raised the Dawnbreaker and smiled. "Good," he said. "I was just getting started." The princess pulled him left through a doorway that sealed behind them with organic fluidity. Her name was Lyra. She'd told him during their sprint. Crown heir to the Zephian Collective. Currently hunted by her own royal guard. "How many are compromised?" Carter asked, keeping the Dawnbreaker ready. "All of them," Lyra said. "The coup happened 90 minutes ago. My father is either dead or imprisoned. I was in the garden when they came. They'd entered what looked like a library, except the books floated in suspension fields and the walls showed star maps that shifted and breathed." Carter's construction worker brain tried to process it and failed. "Why you?" he asked. "Why kill the heir?" "Because I opposed the war." "What war?" Lyra touched a floating tome and it dissolved into light particles. "The one they want to start with your species." Carter felt his grip tighten on the sword. "Earth? We barely have fusion drives. We're not a threat to anyone." "You're not a threat," Lyra agreed. "You're a resource. Your world sits on the largest deposit of quantum foam in this galactic sector, the kind of energy source that could power an empire for 10,000 years. The military faction wants to strip mine your planet before you advance enough to defend it." The Dawnbreaker pulsed in Carter's hand, growing hotter. "How long do we have?" "The invasion fleet launches in 48 hours. An explosion rocked the library. Sections of the floating books tumbled from their fields. Voices shouted commands in the corridor beyond. "The Dawnbreaker," Carter said. "Huh. You said it chooses. What did it choose me for?" Lyra moved to a wall panel, her fingers dancing across controls. Legends say it was forged during the first uprising, when the ancient houses tried to enslave the worker species. A human blacksmith made it, though no one believed humans existed back then. We thought the stories were metaphorical. A human made this when? 50,000 years ago, by our calendar. Carter's world tilted. That's impossible. Humans didn't even have civilization that far back. "Perhaps you did," Lyra said quietly. "Perhaps you forgot." The door exploded inward. 6 new attackers in crimson armor, heavier weapons, tactical formation. Carter moved before thinking, the Dawnbreaker singing as it cut through the air. But these weren't surprised like the others. They'd prepared for him. Energy nets launched from 3 directions. Carter dodged 2, but the third caught his leg. He went down hard, the sword skittering across smooth floor. "The blade is useless without the bearer," the lead attacker said, voice distorted through his helmet. "And the bearer is still just human." Lyra stepped between them and Carter. Her hands were empty, but her silver skin had begun to glow. "You forgot something, Commander Zane," she said. "What's that, Princess?" "I'm not defenseless either," she screamed, and the sound wasn't human or alien. It was something older. The library walls cracked. The floating books ignited. The attackers grabbed their helmets as blood leaked from beneath the seals. Carter felt the sound in his bones, but it didn't hurt him. Instead, it burned away the energy net like morning fog. He rolled, grabbed the Dawnbreaker, and came up swinging. Zane blocked with an energy shield, but the blade punched through it like paper. The commander's arm came off at the shoulder. He didn't scream. His armor injected combat stems, and he kept fighting with his remaining hand. "Impressive," Zane said. "But you're still outnumbered." Carter glanced at Lyra. She'd stopped screaming, but now her hands held what looked like solidified light. 2 of the attackers were down. 4 remained. "You really want to bet on those odds?" Carter asked. Zane laughed. "I'm betting on the missile that just locked onto this room." Carter heard it then, a high-pitched whine growing louder. Incoming ordnance, big enough to level this section. Lyra grabbed his hand. "Trust me," she said. "Always." She sang a single note and the floor dissolved beneath them. They fell through crystalline layers, past sleeping quarters and meditation chambers and armories, plunging down through the heart of the royal spire. Above them, the missile detonated. Fire chased them down the shaft. Carter saw the ground rushing up, certain death in 3 seconds. The Dawnbreaker grew ice cold in his grip. He stabbed it downward, and the blade extended impossibly long, punching into the floor below and stopping their fall with a jerk that nearly tore his shoulders from their sockets. They hung there, suspended on an impossible sword, while debris rained past them. That was new. Carter gasped. "The sword adapts," Lyra said, still gripping his other hand. "It's remembering what it was built for." "Which is?" "Killing gods." They dropped the last 10 feet as the blade retracted. They were in the sublevels now, where service tunnels connected to the city beyond. Emergency lighting painted everything red. "We need to reach the communication array," Lyra said. "Warn your people. 48 hours isn't enough time to evacuate a planet." "No," she agreed. "But it's enough time to fight back. If we can prove the coup is illegal, the other houses might intervene. Your world gets saved as a side effect." Carter looked at the ancient human sword in his hand, at the alien princess, who'd just saved his life 3 times in the last 5 minutes. "Then let's go start a counter-revolution," he said. Lyra smiled. It was sharp and dangerous and full of hope. "Now you sound like a Dawnbreaker." They ran into the tunnels as the spire collapsed behind them. The tunnels smelled like ozone and old copper. Emergency lights flickered across walls that sweated condensation in colors Carter had no names for. Lyra moved with certainty through the maze while he followed, Dawnbreaker held low and ready. "The communication array is in the Civic Tower," she said. 3 kilometers east. We surface in the merchant district. And then, we survive whatever's waiting up there. They emerged through a maintenance hatch into chaos. The city was burning, not with fire, but with some kind of chemical reaction that ate through buildings and left them sagging like melted wax. Civilians ran in every direction, their skin colors ranging from Lyra silver to deep crimson to crystalline blue. Screams echoed in frequencies that made Carter's inner ear ache. "The military faction is purging dissidents," Lyra said, voice tight with rage. "Anyone who opposed the war plans." A patrol rounded the corner. 4 soldiers in black armor, carrying weapons that hummed with lethal promise. They spotted Lyra instantly. "The princess!" one shouted. Target acquired. Carter moved first. The Dawnbreaker felt lighter now, like it was anticipating him instead of guiding him. He closed the distance before they could fire, blade cutting through armor joints with surgical precision. These soldiers had families, lives, but they'd chosen this. He tried not to think about it as they fell. "I'm becoming someone else," he said quietly. Lyra touched his shoulder. "You're becoming who you needed to be. The sword doesn't change people. It reveals them." They kept moving. The Civic Tower rose ahead, a spiraling structure of glass and living metal that scraped the purple sky. But between them and Salvation stood a checkpoint manned by a dozen soldiers and something else. "Combat mech," Lyra breathed. They brought out the heavy units. The machine stood 4 meters tall, bipedal, covered in weapons that tracked movement with insect precision. Its pilot sat in an exposed cockpit, face hidden behind a reflective visor. "Surrender the princess," a amplified voice boomed. "The human dies quick if you comply." Carter looked at the mech, then at the Dawnbreaker. The sword's ancient script was glowing brighter now, new words forming. "God-killer mode," it read. "Warning, lethal energy discharge." "Can you take it?" Lyra asked. "Guess we'll find out." He walked forward, alone, while Lyra hung back. The soldiers raised their weapons, but the mech pilot held up a hand, stopping them. "Brave," the pilot said. "Stupid, but brave." "I've got a question first," Carter called out. "Speak. Do you know what this sword is?" The pilot hesitated. "Zephian legend, the Dawnbreaker. Forged in the first uprising. Hasn't been wielded in millennia. And do you know what happened to the gods it was built to fight?" "Silence." "They died," Carter said. "Every single one," he charged. The mech opened fire with everything. Plasma bolts, kinetic rounds, energy beams that could punch through starship holes. Carter didn't dodge. He let the Dawnbreaker lead. And the sword moved faster than physics should allow, deflecting some shots, absorbing others, creating a shield of pure motion around him. He reached the mech's leg and swung. The blade cut through reinforced alloy like it was mist. The mech stumbled, off balance, and Carter was already moving to the second leg. Another cut, another impossibility. The war machine toppled. The pilot ejected, launching upward on thrust jets. But Carter had learned something in the last 30 seconds. The sword could extend. He pointed the Dawnbreaker skyward and willed it to reach. The blade shot out like a spear, 50 meters of impossible steel, and caught the ejection seat mid-flight. It didn't kill the pilot, just pinned the seat to a nearby building, leaving them dangling and helpless. The soldiers stared. "Anyone else?" Carter asked. They ran. Lyra joined him, eyes wide. That shouldn't be possible. The energy requirements alone would drain a fusion reactor. "Yeah, well, I'm running on adrenaline and spite right now. So let's keep moving before I figure out how tired I should be." They entered the Civic Tower through shattered doors. Inside, more bodies. Civilians and soldiers both, caught in crossfire. Carter felt his jaw tighten but kept moving. Grief was a luxury he couldn't afford yet. The communication array was on the 97th floor. They took emergency stairs because the elevators were dead. Lyra's breathing grew labored around floor 40. Carter realized she was injured, a burn across her ribs he hadn't noticed before. "Why didn't you say something?" "Because stopping would kill us slower than this wound will." He wanted to argue, but she was right. They kept climbing. Floor 97 was a war zone. Someone had fought hard to hold this position. The array itself was a massive dome of crystal and precious metals, designed to punch signals through subspace to every corner of the collective, and standing in front of it was Commander Zane. He'd survived the explosion, survived the fall. His missing arm had been replaced with a crude cybernetic, still sparking and incomplete, but his remaining eye burned with fanatic intensity. "You should be dead," Carter said. "I serve a greater purpose," Zane replied. "Your world will fuel our empire. One planet to save billions. It's simple math." Funny how that math always sacrifices someone else's home. Zane drew a vibroblade with his remaining hand. "The Dawnbreaker makes you fast, skilled, dangerous. But I've been killing for 300 years. You've been holding that sword for 3 hours." He was right. Carter knew it, but the Dawnbreaker pulsed in his grip, and new words formed. Final lesson: trust the bearer. Zane attacked with the speed of centuries. Carter met him with the instinct of something older. They danced across the chamber, blade meeting blade, each strike enough to shatter stone. But where Zane fought with technique, Carter fought with something else. He fought with the memory of Earth, with the weight of being chosen by something that shouldn't exist. The Dawnbreaker found an opening. Zane's vibroblade shattered. The commander stumbled back, defenseless. "Do it," he said. "Prove you're a killer." Carter lowered the sword. "No. You get to live, knowing you failed." He turned to the array. Lyra was already at the controls, her fingers flying across holographic interfaces. "I'm broadcasting on all collective frequencies," she said. "Proof of the coup. Evidence of the invasion plans. It's going to every house, every fleet, every world." Alarms shrieked. More soldiers would be coming. But the message was sent. Lyra collapsed against the console, her injury finally overwhelming her. Carter caught her, held her up. "Did we do it?" he asked. "We started it," she whispered. "Now we see if anyone listens." The first response came 90 seconds later. A holographic figure materialized above the array. An elderly Zephian with skin like burnished gold and eyes that held the weight of centuries. Her robes marked her as High Arbiter, one of the collective supreme judges. "Princess Lyra," the Arbiter said. "Your transmission has been received by the Council of Houses. Emergency session convenes in 1 hour. You are ordered to survive until then." The hologram vanished. Carter looked around the ruined chamber. 1 hour with every soldier in the spire hunting us. "We don't need to survive everywhere," Lyra said, strength returning to her voice. "Just here. This room is the most defensible position in the tower." She moved to the wall panels, still working despite her injury. Sections of the floor slid back, revealing weapons caches and shield generators that hummed to life. Defensive turrets emerged from hidden ports. "My father prepared this room for exactly this scenario," she explained. "A last stand position for the royal family. Your father planned for getting cooped? He planned for everything." Carter helped her activate the defenses while his mind raced. 1 hour. Earth had 1 hour before the council decided whether his entire species lived or died. No pressure. The first assault came 6 minutes later. Soldiers poured from the stairwells and elevator shafts. Dozens of them, coordinated and professional. The automated turrets cut down the first wave, but the second came with portable shields. Energy bolts hammered against the chamber's barriers. Carter stood at the center, Dawnbreaker ready, while Lyra managed the defensive systems from the console. "Breach in Sector 4, she called out. He was already moving. 3 soldiers had burned through a weak point in the shield. Carter met them with the blade, and muscle memory he'd never earned guided each strike. They went down, but more were coming. Always more. "How long?" he shouted over the weapon's fire. 47 minutes. A shaped charge detonated against the main door. The barrier flickered but held, barely. Then the wall exploded. Not from weapons. From something punching through the reinforced structure like it was cardboard. The combat mech that emerged was twice the size of the one Carter had fought below, and its pilot clearly had different orders. "Scorched Earth Protocol," the mech's speakers boomed. "If we can't have the princess alive, we'll have her silenced. It raised an arm cannon that glowed with building energy. One shot would vaporize everything in the room. Carter threw the Dawnbreaker. The sword spun through the air, extending as it flew, becoming a javelin of impossible steel that punched straight through the mech's reactor core. The machine froze, energy building with nowhere to go. "Get down!" Carter yelled. He and Lyra dove behind the console as the mech detonated. The explosion was contained by the chamber's shields, but the shockwave rattled Carter's teeth and left his ears ringing. When he looked up, half the room was gone, open to the purple sky beyond, and the Dawnbreaker had returned to his hand. He didn't remember calling it back. 31 minutes, Lyra said, voice shaking. They'd lost half their defenses in the blast. The remaining turrets were running low on ammunition, and through the gap in the wall, Carter could see more forces gathering below. Aerial units this time, gunships that could strafe them from angles the turrets couldn't cover. "We're not going to make it," he said. Lyra looked at him, blood trickling from a cut above her eye. "Yes, we are. Because if we don't, 8 billion humans die, and I refuse to let that happen." She pulled something from her robes, a small crystal that pulsed within her light. "My personal beacon," she said. "There are still loyalists out there, soldiers who served my father, houses that oppose the war. I can call them. Will they reach us in time? I don't know. But it's better than waiting to die." She activated the beacon. Its light filled the ruined chamber, broadcasting on frequencies Carter couldn't perceive. The gunships opened fire. Carter raised the Dawnbreaker and discovered something new. The blade could create a barrier, a shield of solidified energy that caught the incoming fire and held it suspended in midair. But the effort was enormous. He felt the sword drinking his strength, his stamina, everything he had. "Carter," Lyra warned, "I know. Just hold on." The barrier cracked, reformed, cracked again. Each impact sent shockwaves through his arms. He was going to drop it, going to fail, going to watch Lyra die, and Earth burn, and everything end because he wasn't strong enough. Different engines. Friendly engines. Ships burst through the clouds, dozens of them bearing the marks of 7 different houses. They fell upon the military gunships with focused fury, and the sky became a battlefield of energy weapons and evasive maneuvers. A single ship broke from the fight, a sleek courier craft that landed on what remained of the chamber floor. The hatch opened and a figure emerged, tall and silver-skinned like Lyra, but with a warrior's bearing. "Aunt Kara?" Lyra breathed. The woman surveyed the carnage with approval. "You've been busy, niece, and this must be the human everyone's talking about." Carter lowered the barrier, exhausted. "People are talking about me? Your little stunt with the first combat mech was broadcast on every news feed in the city. The human wielding the Dawnbreaker. It's quite the story." More ships were landing now, deploying troops in blue armor. Loyalist forces taking positions and securing the tower. "How much time?" Kira asked. 11 minutes, Lyra said. Kira nodded. "Then let's make sure you're both presentable for the council. Can't have you testifying covered in blood and burns." Medical personnel rushed forward with equipment that sealed wounds and neutralized toxins. Carter felt his strength returning as they worked, the exhaustion fading under alien medicine that bordered on miraculous. "The invasion fleet," he said. "Where is it now?" "Holding position at the edge of the system," Kira answered, waiting final authorization, which is what this council session will determine. "And if they authorize it anyway?" Kira's expression hardened. "Then we fight them. Civil war is preferable to genocide." A holographic timer appeared above the array. 60 seconds. Lyra took Carter's hand. Her grip was firm despite everything they'd endured. "Whatever happens," she said, "you saved my life multiple times today. My people owe you a debt." "Just save my people," Carter replied. "That's all the payment I need." The timer hit 0. The holographic arbiter reappeared, but she wasn't alone. Behind her stood representatives from all 12 major houses, their faces grave. "The council recognizes Princess Lyra of House Zephian," the arbiter said formally. "Present your evidence." Lyra stepped forward, and Carter stood beside her, the Dawnbreaker still humming in his grip. This was it, the moment that decided everything. Lyra's voice rang clear across the holographic connection, projected to every world in the collective. Honored Council, I present evidence of treason. General Vakris and his military faction orchestrated the assassination of my father, King Nerion, to seize control and launch an unprovoked invasion of a protected developing species. She transmitted files, recordings, tactical plans. Carter watched the council members' faces shift from skepticism to horror as the data scrolled past. The human homeworld possesses quantum foam deposits, Lyra continued. But it is also under collective law as a Class 3 emerging civilization. Invasion violates the founding charter. Article 7, subsection 12. One of the council members, a reptilian figure with obsidian scales, leaned forward. These recordings could be fabricated. The military faction claims you staged a coup attempt and they merely responded. They were going to talk themselves into allowing the invasion. Then a new holographic figure appeared, unauthorized, breaking into the transmission. The image was grainy, clearly recorded in haste. It was King Nerion. If you're seeing this, the king's recording said, I am, dead or imprisoned. My daughter speaks truth. General Vakris came to me 3 weeks ago demanding authorization for the Earth invasion. When I refused, he threatened to take it by force. This message is my testimony. Lyra is the rightful heir. The military faction must be stopped. The transmission ended. Silence fell across the council chamber. Then the arbiter spoke. By emergency powers vested in this council, we declare the military faction's actions illegal. The invasion fleet is ordered to stand down immediately. General Vakris and his co-conspirators are to be arrested and tried for high treason. Carter felt relief flood through him. Earth was safe. But the celebration died when a new voice cut into the transmission. The council's authority is no longer recognized. General Vakris appeared, broadcasting from the bridge of a warship. Behind him, Carter could see the invasion fleet, hundreds of vessels bristling with weapons. We invoke the right of supremacy, Vakris declared. When the council fails to act in the collective's best interests, the military may assume control. This invasion proceeds. Earth's resources will fuel our empire for generations. The arbiter's face went pale. You cannot invoke supremacy without proof the council endangered the collective. Your refusal to seize critical resources is proof enough. The vote among fleet commanders was unanimous. We launch in 1 hour. The transmission cut. Chaos erupted in the council chamber. Voices shouting, accusations flying, but none of it mattered. The fleet was going to launch, and no amount of legal debate would stop them. Carter looked at the Dawnbreaker, the ancient weapon that had chosen him for reasons he still didn't understand. There has to be something we can do, he said. Kira stepped forward, her tactical mind already working. The fleet needs to jump through a quantum gate to reach Earth. There's only one gate in range, the Nexus Station. If we can disable it, we buy time. How much time? Weeks, maybe months. Long enough for Loyalist forces to regroup and stop Vakris conventionally. Lyra was already pulling up star charts. The Nexus is defended by a skeleton crew. Most forces are with the fleet, but it's still a military installation. We'd need a strike team. I'll go, Carter said immediately. You're not trained for orbital combat. I've got a magic sword and 12 hours of experience not dying. That'll have to be enough. Kira studied him with a warrior's assessment. The Dawnbreaker hasn't been used in space combat in recorded history. We don't know if it will even function in zero gravity. Only one way to find out. Lyra grabbed his arm. You could die up there. Actually die. Not just maybe die like today. Carter met her eyes. If I don't go, 8 billion people definitely die. The math isn't complicated. She held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded. Then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not, Kira said. You're the heir. The legitimacy of any resistance depends on you staying alive. And the legitimacy means nothing if we let Earth burn, Lyra shot back. Carter needs someone who knows Nexus Station's layout. I trained there for 2 years. The debate could have continued, but time was bleeding away. Kira finally relented with the condition that she commanded the strike force personally. They assembled in the hangar bay 30 minutes later. 20 soldiers in void-rated armor, weapons designed for boarding actions, faces set with grim determination. Carter wore a borrowed suit that felt like it was made of liquid metal, conforming to his body. The Dawnbreaker hung at his side, somehow sheathing itself in energy when not needed. "The plan is simple," Kira briefed them as they boarded the assault ship. "We hit the Nexus from 3 vectors. Alpha Team secures the command center. Bravo Team holds the hangar against reinforcements. Charlie Team, that's us, reaches the gate controls and plants charges. What's our exit strategy?" one soldier asked. "We blow the gate, then run like hell before the explosion catches us." "Fantastic plan, Commander. I'm open to suggestions." No one offered any. The assault ship launched, accelerating hard enough that Carter's borrowed suit had to inject stabilizers to keep him conscious. Through the viewport, he watched the planet fall away, replaced by the black expanse of space, and ahead, growing larger, the Nexus station. It was enormous, a ring-shaped structure 10 kilometers in diameter, with the quantum gate at its center. The gate itself looked like a wound in reality, a shimmering portal held stable by technology Carter couldn't begin to understand. "The fleet is gathering on the far side," the pilot announced. "We've got maybe 20 minutes before they're in position to jump." Alarms blared. The station had spotted them. "Defensive batteries powering up," the pilot said. "Brace for evasive action." The ship twisted through space, dodging energy beams that could vaporize a city block. Carter's stomach lurched, despite the suit's stabilizers. This was nothing like ground combat. Everything was 3-dimensional, disorienting, lethal from any angle. They reached the hangar through a combination of skill and luck, burning through the magnetic barrier and landing hard inside the pressurized bay. The ramp dropped, and they poured out into a firefight. Station defenders were already in position, using cargo containers for cover. Energy weapons lit the hangar in strobing colors. Carter drew the Dawnbreaker and felt it adjust, the blade taking on a faint shimmer. "Vacuum sealed," Lyra said over the comm. "It's protecting itself from decompression." Carter charged into the fight and discovered zero gravity changed everything. Each swing sent him spinning, unless he compensated. The Dawnbreaker adapted faster than he did, using its energy field to provide thrust and stability. He became a whirlwind of impossible motion, cutting through defenders and their cover alike. "Charlie Team, move!" Kira ordered. They fought through the station's corridors, heading for the central core where the gate controls waited. Bravo Team peeled off to hold the hangar. Alpha Team diverged toward command. Carter, Lyra, Kira, and 6 soldiers pushed deeper into the Nexus and ran straight into an ambush. The corridor ahead erupted with weapons fire from concealed positions. 2 soldiers went down before they could react. Kira returned fire while pulling them to cover. "They knew we were coming," she snarled. "Of course we did." General Vakris himself stepped into view at the far end of the corridor, flanked by his personal guard. He wore battle armor that made him look like a walking tank. "Did you really think I wouldn't anticipate this?" Vakris said. "The moment you left the planet, I knew your target, so I came here myself to ensure you failed." Carter raised the Dawnbreaker. "Then let's finish this," Vakris smiled. "With pleasure. Kill them all." The corridor became hell. Vakris's guards opened fire with weapons designed to punch through ship hulls. The walls exploded into shrapnel. Kira's soldiers returned fire, but they were pinned, outgunned, dying. Carter pushed forward into the storm. The Dawnbreaker moved, like it had been waiting for this moment. Every bolt that came close was deflected or absorbed. The sword's energy field expanded, creating a moving shield that protected not just Carter but Lyra behind him. "Impossible," Vakris breathed. Carter closed the distance. Vakris drew a blade of his own, crackling with power that made the air taste like lightning. They met in the center of the corridor, and the impact sent shockwaves through the station's structure. Vakris fought with 300 years of experience. Carter fought with something older than stars. They were evenly matched for exactly 4 seconds. Then the Dawnbreaker whispered in Carter's mind. Not words, but pure understanding. It showed him Vakris's pattern, his rhythm, the microscopic tell before each strike. Carter stopped defending and started predicting. Vakris's blade found empty air. Carter's found armor joints. The general stumbled back, bleeding from a dozen precise cuts. "You're still just human," Vakris gasped. "Yeah," Carter said. "We're good at that." He disarmed Vakris with a strike that shattered the general's weapon into sparking fragments. The guards tried to intervene, but Kira's remaining soldiers held them back with desperate covering fire. Vakris fell to his knees, defeated. "The gate controls," Lyra shouted. "We're out of time." Carter looked at the general, then at the corridor beyond where the controls waited. They had maybe 2 minutes before the fleet jumped. "Go!" Kira ordered. "We'll handle this." Carter and Lyra ran, leaving the firefight behind. The station's core chamber opened before them, a cathedral of technology surrounding the quantum gate stabilization array. Through the viewport, Carter could see the invasion fleet aligning, hundreds of warships preparing to jump. "There," Lyra said, pointing to a central console. They reached it together. Lyra's hands flew across the controls while Carter stood guard, but no defenders came. Everyone was committed to the battle in the corridor. "Charges placed," Lyra said. "Detonation in 90 seconds. We need to run." "Wait." Carter stared at the gate, at the fleet beyond. "If we blow this now, they just build another gate. It buys time, but doesn't stop them." "What are you suggesting?" Carter raised the Dawnbreaker. The sword was glowing brighter than ever, script scrolling across its surface too fast to read. "The gate is just stabilized energy, right? A controlled tear in space." "Yes, but..." "And this sword absorbs energy. What if it could absorb the whole gate?" Lyra's eyes widened. "That would destabilize the entire quantum field. The backlash would cripple every ship in range, including this station, including the invasion fleet, and us." Carter looked at her, at this alien princess who'd trusted him with everything, who'd fought beside him, who'd risked her life to save a species she'd never met. "Get to the escape pods," he said quietly. "No, Rai. I said no." She moved to stand beside him. "If you're doing this, I'm staying. Someone needs to witness what happens here. Someone needs to tell Earth that a human saved them." Carter wanted to argue, but there wasn't time. The fleet was beginning its jump sequence. He plunged the Dawnbreaker into the gate's control matrix. The sword screamed. Energy poured into the blade, more than any weapon should hold, more than physics should allow. The gate began to collapse, its carefully maintained stability fracturing. But instead of exploding outward, the Dawnbreaker was drinking it all, containing the destruction. Carter felt the power burning through him. The sword was using him as a conduit, and it was too much. His borrowed suit was failing, his body breaking down at the cellular level. Lyra grabbed his hand, adding her strength to his. "Together," she said. The gate imploded. The quantum backlash hit the invasion fleet like a physical wave. Ships tumbled, their jump drives overloading, their systems cascading into failure. In the span of 3 seconds, hundreds of warships became floating debris. The Nexus station shook itself apart. Hull breaches opened to vacuum. Fires that shouldn't exist in space burned with borrowed physics. Carter felt himself dying. The Dawnbreaker had given him everything, but this was too much. Then the sword released. The energy dispersed, bleeding into subspace where it could dissipate harmlessly. Carter collapsed, the Dawnbreaker clattering to the deck beside him. Lyra caught him, her suit's medical systems already flooding his body with emergency treatment. "Charlie team." Kira's voice crackled over the comm. "Status report. Alive," Lyra managed. "Barely." "The fleet is disabled. The gate is gone." "Copy that. Retrieval team incoming. Just stay breathing." Carter looked up at Lyra through failing vision. "Did we do it?" "You did it," she said, and he'd never heard such wonder in anyone's voice. "You just saved your entire species." Consciousness faded. When Carter woke 3 days later in a medical bay, the first thing he saw was Earth on a view screen. Whole, safe, blue and beautiful. Lyra sat beside his bed, looking exhausted but smiling. "Your people have been contacted," she said, carefully, gently. "They know what almost happened. They know what you did. And Vakros, arrested, along with his entire faction. My father is recovering. The council has passed emergency reforms to prevent this from ever happening again." Carter tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Every muscle screamed. The Dawnbreaker. Lyra held up the sword. It looked different now, simpler, like it had expended something fundamental. "It's dormant," she said. "The scholars say it may never activate again." It gave everything to save Earth. Carter took the blade, felt its weight. Just metal now, just a sword. But it had been enough. "What happens now?" he asked. Lyra's smile turned mischievous. "Now you become the most famous human in the galaxy. The man who wielded the Dawnbreaker. Earth's first contact will be shaped by your story. I was just a construction worker. You were exactly what the universe needed." Carter looked at the sword in his hands, then at the planet on the screen. Somewhere down there, people were going about their lives, completely unaware how close they'd come to extinction, and he was fine with that. Heroes didn't need recognition. They just needed to show up when it mattered. "So," he said, "when do I get to go home?" Lyra's expression softened. "Whenever you want. Though if you'd consider staying a while longer, Earth is going to need an ambassador. Someone who understands both worlds." Carter thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. "Yeah," he said, "I can do that." Somewhere in the sword's dormant metal, something pulsed once. Satisfied. The galaxy had found its bridge between species, and it had started with one human who grabbed a random weapon to protect someone who needed help.